Before you start this episode, please can you click subscribe below and follow our social handles in the description. It's a massive help and it keeps you up to date with all the exciting announcements from the podcast. Well, cheers Ben for coming on.
Welcome.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
I know you're a busy guy. So first question, I'm going to jump straight in. So usually what I ask everyone to do is to kind of go from start life to this point and try and do it in about a minute and a half. Bit of a challenge. That'll force you to bring out the pertinent points that are really important.
Minute and a half. Gotcha.
So you up for the challenge?
Go for it.
Yeah. So tell me about Ben Owen in a minute and a half.
In a minute and a half. Ben Owen. As a 17-year-old, I think my father probably got annoyed with me hanging around street corners, drinking beer and coming home late. He frog marched me down the careers office for the military. I actually went in the careers office to join the Royal Marines. I was sat in the waiting area. The Navy recruitment guy was out the office on his lunch, and an Air Force guy came in, nabbed me, stuck me in a room, said, if you want to join the Marines, watch this video. He showed me a video of the RAF Regiment, which is the infantry fighting force of the Air Force, and that's how I joined the RAF Regiment, purely because the Navy guy was out on lunch. That's how but that's how life works out, isn't it? Yeah. And that's how the start of my life worked out, because the Navy guy went on lunch. Anyway, it's a minute. So I was in the military for a short period, 6-7 years. Yeah. I was in Gulf War II at age 19. Served in lots of different areas across the world, but that was my only wartime conflict. Afghanistan came after my military career finished. At the ripe old age of 22, I joined the intelligence services, working for the Ministry of Defence. That's probably my longest career to date at the moment. I spent about 10 years in the intelligence world. As with life, you get bored and stagnant and want to move on and try different things. I moved out into the private industry. Best thing I ever did in my life. As soon as I left the government work, I was, again, friend of a friend of a friend. Right place, right time. Do you fancy doing this cool project? Yes, I do. And it ended up being Hunted. I filmed the first ever Hunted to go out globally. At the time we did it, it was just it was an experiment. Yeah. And then from there, I've filmed all across the world. Just finishing on Australia. But my main job at the moment is cybersecurity. I work in digital intelligence and keeping people safe online. Well over a minute, sorry.
Well over a minute, but we got there a lot shorter than most people, actually. So, isn't it? So, yeah, that's pretty good. Well, let's go back to some of the early stuff. So, I know you mentioned you sort of joined the military about 17. Yeah. So, what would, if you take a step further behind that? So, what was kind of early years, Ben?
Early years, Ben. Well, I don't want to give like a shaggy dog story, because I'm always a big believer of someone's had it harder than you. Yeah. Someone's had, more financial difficulties than you. Someone's grown up in a harder area or a tougher area, dealt with more adversity than you. But my mother died when I was 4. She was an alcoholic. She had a heart attack. My parents already split up, so then me and my brother moved in with my father. He was great, worked his arse off. He was a school caretaker, so we didn't have much money. But again, that's not me, a sob story at all. Yeah. Because actually, when I look at my childhood, as tough as it was, as in like we didn't get things handed to us, we had to be dynamic and literally make things up to have fun. Manhunt, football, kicking tin cans around in the street. Yeah. All of that kind of stuff you'd expect in the sort of growing up in the 80s and 90s in sort of a council estate area. But actually now I look back at my childhood and I have so many fond memories. I do not regret any of it. I thought it was great. And although it was very sad my mother died at 4, actually because of that, and growing up without a mother figure in a sort of a tough kind of area, with not much money, actually I think that made me the person I am today. So I'm thankful for the opportunity of my childhood, if that makes sense. Yeah. Most people, I guess, would say I'm thankful that my parents had a shitload of money. Yeah. Am I allowed to swear, by the way?
Yeah, of course you can.
Most people would say I'm thankful my parents had a shitload of money and they bought me my first apartment and car and I'm off to the races. Yeah. But I'm actually thankful I'd never had any of that. I've never had a handout. I've never had any inheritance. Everything I've done it through myself because of the determination and resilience I had to have as a young man. Yeah. So I'm sort of thankful for that upbringing. I had a great time. We made some really good laughs, great friends, friends that I'll keep forever. And I think because of the discipline my father gave me and my brother, he was hard on us, really hard on us, because I think he recognised we could fall off the slopes really quickly. So
Yeah.
the discipline he instilled on us,
So what was the sort of discipline?
as in, every day we would do, cleaning the house. On Sundays, he would inspect the house after we cleaned
Yeah.
it. We would be doing the dishes. He actually, which is a funny story, I tell people now, they go, "Oh my God, that's horrible." But I thought it was funny at the time because I'm short now. But at the time, I couldn't reach the sink.
Yeah.
He built us like a table out of an old milk cart.
Yeah.
Put some wood on the top so we could step on it to do the washing up rotors. All the stuff
No excuses,
that I
then.
think would be normal now, but actually most families don't do that. The parents do everything, which is fine. People grow up in different, with different parents, but. We did do everything because it was a single parent. He was out working, so we didn't have that constant. We didn't have the constant mollycoddling where we were looked after all the time and patted on the back and said, "It's all right, boy, don't worry, don't cry." We just got on with it.
Yeah.
If we put a foot out of line, we would know about it, click around the ear roll kind of thing.
Yeah.
But because of that, I guess my point is because of the way he parented us, I actually found joining the military as a young man at 17, you're still wet behind the ears. You've got no life experience.
Yeah.
I wasn't particularly physically fit because who is at 17 years old? I played football and kept fit, so to speak. But because of the discipline, the upbringing, resilience, experience I had through that, I actually found it okay.
Just slotted in quite well.
It was tough work because I'd never lived away from home before.
Yeah.
But I'd always looked after myself. And actually, when I got on the training, I'm 17, I'm looking round. Like, I haven't even got stubble at this point. I'm looking around, there's men.
At least you don't need to shave.
Exactly. I stick my head out the window in the car and it comes off. But I'm looking around and there's grown men. Like, to me, they were men, like mid-20s, late 20s, 30s. And as a 17-year-old, that was quite daunting. I was thinking, shit.
Yeah.
I'm never going to pass this. It was 6 months training.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. It was hard. Whichever regiment you join the military... I don't care how long, whether it's 3 months, 6 months. If you're 17, you've never lived away from home. It's daunting.
Yeah, of course. Is there any military history in your family, or?
Actually, not my immediate family, but my extended family. Obviously, my grandparents, my grandfather was. I've got all of his medals still. But I think most grandparents nowadays, maybe a bit longer back in the generations, would have fought in the wars.
Yeah.
But not a massive military history. But I was one of them kids that. I think most kids growing up in the 80s wanted to be soldiers when they're older, and I sort of never grew out of that. For Christmas, I wanted my dad to buy me military books and stuff like that, so I was a bit of a military geek, and I never grew out of it, and I sort of knew that's what I wanted to do.
Did you think you know what you want? So my daughter's sort of 17, and she has 17 at the end of the year, and she hasn't got a clue what she wants to do. And there's a lot of pressure on kids, and I was on a podcast the other week talking to audience that was, uni leavers, school leavers and stuff, and there's so much. There's a lack of support out there for understanding exactly where you can go, unless you really, really know, I want to go uni because I want to be a vet, or I want to go uni because I want to be a doctor. The work element of what companies are out there, what opportunities are out there, what you can learn is the support to gauge what is out there is really, really minimal. Did you always know you wanted to be a military guy, even from a young age?
I think I did. I think I always knew that. But back then. I'm saying it like I'm really old. I'm nearly 40, so I'm not that old, hopefully. But back then, it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
There weren't that many options. Nowadays, I get all these titles of work. I have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
There's so many options on the table. That's why it's confusing for 17-year-olds now. They're like, what the hell do I do? We now live in a digital world where everything's forced down your throat.
Yeah.
All these influences online, and it confuses. I think it confuses the younger generation. I think, what the hell do I do? But actually, when I was growing up, it was easy. You joined the military. You was a tradesman. If you were clever, you'd go into London and work somewhere.
Yeah.
It was actually sort of easy to choose what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to do that, and that was what I wanted to do.
Did your dad influence that decision as well?
He did, because he knew I wasn't particularly academic. I was never naughty at school. I found it incredibly boring. I just didn't like school. I was never really naughty at all. I've got in trouble a couple of times, but just a steady Eddie. But I found it really boring. I wasn't very academic. I'm still not very academic. I can't pick stuff up very quickly. I learn through repetition. So I never was going to do well at school. I didn't do well at school grades-wise. And that's why my dad, he did sort of encourage that, because he knew at that time, if you go into that, you do that well, you're disciplined, you're fit, you're resilient, what you can achieve after leaving the military, that's when it comes to fruition, and that's how it's
I suppose
worked
that
out.
kind of linked in with what you were saying about his parenting style, being a single parent as well, and keeping you in line and making sure that things are done at certain times to a certain standard, and the checks. I suppose you might have thought, look, there's already some good base disciplines that he might be able to use.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you joined the military then, when you were 17, tell us a bit about kind of your first 6-12 months doing that. I mean, I've never done it, but I've got friends that do it, that are still there now, doing bits and pieces. And for some, it's a real shock to the system. You mentioned it's not. So what was the kind of first year or couple of years? What were you doing?
Well, actually, again, this isn't blowing smoke up my arse at all. But actually, every course I did, I got top student as well because of that. I had this inherent drive inside of me to not to please, but to show the instructors, my commanders, that I am willing to work my arse off.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of attitude, it just sort of came out. And I think the fact I was 17, I was thinking, shit, this guy's actually quite good for 17. Most 17-year-olds wouldn't even pass the course, or they'd go running back to mummy after 1 week, or the girlfriends or whatever.
Yeah.
Slightly digress, sorry, but I think I passed the 6 months training, got top student, so that was great. Even my dad was like, "How the hell did you do that?" So even he was surprised, as I was. And then I was posted to my first unit, which was based in West London, because I was still 17 at the point when I went to the squadron. Actually, if you got top student, they said you can have your first choice of deployment.
Okay.
So I put Germany as my first choice, but because I was not an adult yet, I wasn't allowed to go to Germany. So I got my second choice, which was the Queen's Colour Squadron, which is actually a drill and ceremonial unit. They're based in RAF Northolt at the moment, but oh my God, I had an incredible time. It was great. You know, half of the year we'd do drill and ceremonial, so we'd Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, travelling the world, doing displays to royal dignitaries across the world. Incredible travel, Canada, Australia, Europe. It was brilliant. America, and then the other 6 months was your greens, as you said. So that would be the infantry work. So that's my first couple of years. I think my first training exercise, I went to Cyprus. I was still 17 at the point. That was an indoctrination, I can tell you. Going to Cyprus on squadron after training as the new boy at 17 years old.
I suppose people wanted to knock you down a peg.
My God, it was When actually at the time I just got on with it, but now I look back and think, Jesus, that it was bullying, but it was character building. It was acceptable, and that's what made things okay at the time because there wasn't that constant pressure of, I guess, just throwing it out there, being frank, people getting upset.
Yeah.
But again, I look back, and as harsh as it was, like the bigger boys would come back after drinking all night out in Cyprus.
Yeah.
I wasn't invited to go out because I was 17. I was the new lad. They didn't know me. It's like, you can go away, mate.
Yeah.
They'd come back, lift you out of your bed, give you a boot, all that kind of stuff.
What's the worst experience I mean, it might have been character building. You wouldn't have found out at the time, maybe.
No, exactly.
Back, what's the worst experience you had of that? Like, what's the worst thing they've done to kind of induct you?
I think I was quite lucky. Actually, other new members
you hear some stories
got it worse. They did get it worse. So I was quite lucky, I think. Maybe I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I got my head down and accepted a few things, and over a while they're all right. Okay, he's all right now. But some horror stories of other people had. I think they would get a couple of the new lads to have a fight, and they would bet on who would win, stuff like that. But at the time, it was acceptable. I'm not saying this as like it was really wrong.
Yeah.
At that time, in that environment, it was acceptable, and it was absolutely fine. Nowadays, I think there would be an issue with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, as with all experiences that I've had, I now look back at that, and I'm grateful I had it.
Yeah.
Because it does make you more mentally resilient. It really, really does. I don't care what anyone says, because I'm a big believer of never make excuses. I've had some crap through my life, but so have you. So have everyone listening to this podcast have had crap in their life to deal with.
Yeah.
But what you can't do in life is go forward and blame incidents, people, or experiences you've had. My mum died at 4. She was an alcoholic. I could have not got a job, taken drugs, been an alcoholic myself, and blamed my mother.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? It's not her fault. I need to look after my own life, and everyone else needs to get a grip, because I think... No, I say that it sounds quite harsh, but people do need to take ownership.
Yeah.
And just deal with the things that have happened in their life. Look at the benefits from it. At the time, you won't see the benefits, but a year after, you will, because it might have molded you into a better person. As cliche as it is, a door shuts, another one opens. That is so true. It really, really is.
I've always found, with my experience, the time when you make the decision to be positive in the face of something that's
Yeah.
negative or adverse, that's when good stuff happens to you.
Of course it
'Cause
does,
it's as if the world's rewarding you for choosing the right path.
Yeah.
And when you kind of get wrapped up in the negativity, that only gets followed by more and more and more, and you're in
Eats
this
away.
cycle.
Yeah, you won't be able to get out
Especially
of
with
it.
social media these days, and as well, family as well, I think, play a part, because they don't want you to take the risk necessarily. They want you to play it safe. They want you to be okay. And naturally, I think humans are quite negative individuals anyway, and take that negatively.
are.
You go on social media, there is a load of positive stuff on there, but the majority of the news, the social media, it's taken negatively, even if it's positive, because
Correct.
you're comparing yourself to something that's just uncomparable.
Yeah,
You're comparing
correct.
yourself to somebody that's 10 years further down the line with more experiences, or have got millions of pounds in the bank, or are happy to go on holidays here and there, and you're looking at your own situation and thinking, well, why am I not good enough?
Yeah, you're always
It's
looking
hard
at someone
for
else.
people.
And do you know what? You're absolutely right. You mentioned about taking the safer path, or being safe.
Yeah,
And what I've always found, my dad is that person.
yeah,
He wanted a stable job. He wanted the monthly salary. He would
Yeah.
not step out of his comfort zone. He was too scared.
yeah,
But he's not a scared person. It's weird. I've been completely different. I've taken so many risks in life. I left the military to join government services. I'd left that job. I'd already signed the papers to leave, joined a course which I could have failed,
Yeah.
and then I would have had no job.
yeah.
But if I didn't take that risk, I wouldn't have got the job. I wouldn't have had 10 years great experience to then go out in the private industry. Again, leaving the government job to do a private job. It was pretty crap at the time, thinking, oh, have I done the right thing? But actually, you do need to take these risks in life, especially now, because it used to be the case of you are encouraged to go to school, you're encouraged to go to university, get a job, have a stable income, pay the bills, get a car, have one holiday a year.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything more boring.
Yeah.
I really couldn't.
But that's what society tells you
Yes.
is the right thing to do.
But I don't think it is, personally speaking, through my experiences.
Yeah.
And I know every person's experience is different. But if you're that person and you are doing that job and you're having one holiday a year, you're getting up at 7 in the morning, getting the train into London, pissed off and bored, take the risk.
Yeah.
It would be
It's
my
only you-
advice.
it's only
Take
you-
the risk.
It's only you that can change it.
Take the risk,
End of the day,
because and it's not because I'm potentially cleverer than anyone else. It's because I've taken the risks.
Yeah.
I'm able to wake up in the morning with the sun shining and say, do you know what? I'm going to do this work at the coffee shop and look at the sea with the sun rising, and work anywhere. But that might not be for some people, of course. But
Yeah.
my advice would be, if you're feel like you're stuck in a rut, board, take the risk. It always does pay off.
You've got nothing to lose at the end
Maybe
of the
not
day.
initially,
Yeah.
but in 5 years you'll look back and go, what a good decision that was.
Yeah, you might have some hard times to get there. But
Yeah, absolutely
you've
right.
got to
Yeah,
take the risk. Or you're going to be in the same rut for years.
Yeah.
So with the military, then, so before we kind of move on to you moving on from that, what was the hardest time in the military for you? Toughest point?
I think probably Gulf War II. I was 19. Again, I'm still a teenager.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that my daughter being 17 at the end of the year, only 2 years on from that, you're in that sort of a situation.
I remember before we deployed, because obviously all the politics going on in the background, and again at 19 I had no idea what the politics was. I really had no idea really why we were going there. All we were told, it was, weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Saddam Hussein, watching the news, Twin Towers, and you think, okay, that's why we're going. Really, actually, there was a big machine behind it politically. Of course, there always is. So I had no idea about that. But I remember before even we deployed, it was on. We're going to the airport. It's off. It's not on. We sat there for a day. It's on. We go back to the airport. Flight's cancelled. But really, I think looking back, the hardest point in my military career was being so young, probably naive, and being so far away in a desert somewhere. It was just a weird, surreal experience, and I remember the feeling of just wanting to go home.
How did you deal with that as a 19-year-old?
Comrades, you have all your friends around you. At that point, in that situation, they're the best friends in the world.
Yeah, so you're kind of 2 years in, so you feeling accepted at that point?
Yeah, accepted. Yeah. Everyone's getting on. And to be honest, even if you were new and you went to that situation, everything changes. There's none of that, we're going to teach you a lesson because you're new. Yeah. You are all brothers in arms at that point,
Business
aren't you?
head on type thing, yeah.
And I'll be honest, we didn't see an incredible amount of conflict because we went in after the Americans through the Kuwaiti border into Safwan and then up to Basra. There were some hairy moments during the deployment, but I'm not going to say to you I was there, fighting insurgents every single day. That wasn't the case. But just being there, that young, that experience, never having that experience before, in a weird, strange environment, I found it tough.
Yeah.
But once again, I look back, I'm
a
glad I
learning
did it.
curve, yeah.
Glad I did it.
What's the worst thing you saw in that conflict?
I think going to lots of things, but do you know what? Actually, I changed my mind. The worst thing I saw was not actually any conflict stuff. So I'd seen a chap on fire. It wasn't through a fight with insurgents and us.
Yeah.
It was an accident in one of their fire stations. So that was horrific. But do you know what? The worst thing that haunts me is a mistake I made. We were going around just doing hearts and minds, they call it, going around the local villages,
Okay.
you know, farmers.
relations
Yeah,
and stuff,
hello, giving biscuits out, kids, water, stuff like that. And I drove in to this farm, and as I was driving out, I made a mistake and I drove over this chap's piping. So I broke his piping and all his irrigation to his farm, and I honestly, mate, I felt terrible. And then we went back the next day and helped him fix it because I couldn't relax. Because that was potentially his livelihood, but we fixed it. But for 24 hours, I felt like the worst person on earth because I just saw his face when I'd done it. He's thinking, "Oh my god,
That's the end of me."
that's it." And it was just an accident.
And you've gone in there without him wanting you in there.
Yeah,
As such,
and second to that, I think it was, and going back to my point earlier about my upbringing, there's always someone worse off. And driving around the villages and seeing the children disheartened, probably a bit confused, wondering what the hell's going on, having to really sort their own shit out. That was quite a tough bit. I'm still young at that point, and that was difficult for me to deal with emotionally, seeing the kids really and how they were brought up. And I said I would never moan again after coming back from that. Actually seeing how other kids grew up in them environments, really.
I think it's different people's opinion and versions of what's difficult, and then when you see
real difficulty, real adversary, that's when you snap out of it and go, do you know what? Whatever you've dealt with,
ain't that bad.
Get on with it. That kind of thing.
So why the choice to go from military into the sort of intelligence world? How did that come about?
I think for me, it all stemmed. I passed my sniper's course, which is one of the best things I'd ever done. One of the hardest courses I've ever done.
Was
still
that
to this
when
day.
you were 18, 19?
I was, I think 20, 21. I passed the course. I left not long after being a badge sniper. I think about a year after. Course was fantastic. But to even be accepted onto the course, you need to show a high degree of professionalism as a soldier, because you're just never going to pass the course. Being a sniper is one of them skills. You have to be good at lots of different things, not just good at one thing. You need to be good at map reading, navigation, observation skills, stalking skills, definitely resilient, obviously shooting, judging distances, lots and lots of different things you have to pass. And there's no get 50%, you pass. You need to pass 100% on every single different badge skill. Hardest course I've ever done, but the best course I've ever done in equal measure. The sleep deprivation on it was horrible.
Is that when you're doing sort of reconnaissance?
Yeah, and it was literally, you get back after 48 hours and they go, right, brew up, get a brew, back into briefing, you're back out again, and you're thinking, oh my god, maybe the next one I can have just an hour's sleep, that's all I want. But anyway, from my sniper training, and then obviously putting into practice after, I fell in love with the concept of intelligence gathering, because the sniper in the battlefield is I guess, as cheesy as it sounds, it's a bit of a force multiplier. You are the eyes and ears of the bigger unit. You're going ahead of them, maybe potentially 2-3 days ahead, to observe the enemy, to feed that information back. Knowing your enemy better than they know themselves is an incredible advantage in any environment, whether that's espionage, whether that's dealing with searching and investigating terrorism, whether that's law enforcement. So I fell in love with the notion of brains over brawn. And a friend said to me, "Have you considered joining the MOD and they do like intelligence gathering stuff?" I thought, you know what, I've never really thought of that. And anyway, it was the sort of times the internet was just becoming a thing. Where you'd click a button, it'd make a funny noise down the phone line, and I applied online, sent the CV, and they just kept coming back with, you passed that section, come back for another test. I'd pass that test, and every test I passed, I thought, I'll probably fail at some point, because I think most people think anyone going into the intelligence world, whether that's government or otherwise, think it's sort of Oxbridge delegates going forward. I had 1 C grade. I'm sure I actually lied on my paperwork to get in the military to bump it up to 3 A to Cs. I'd never had that. I can say that now because I've left years and years
yeah,
ago.
I was going to say you won't get in trouble.
But yeah, and it was the whole concept of sort of knowing your enemy a lot better, intelligence gathering, being smart and outboxing, so to speak, your enemy. And I think that's where I fell in love with intelligence gathering.
Yeah. What part of it did you find the hardest to deal with in those sort of, it was 9-10 years you were doing
10
that,
years,
wasn't it?
yeah. I think the hardest bit was probably the boredom. I think, when people watch the films, James Bond cutting around, shooting people, going to casinos, getting poisoned and all that kind of stuff, it really isn't like that. A lot of it is quite boring. You are out collecting intelligence, but the exciting bit is when it changes. 10% of your work is high pace, high pressure, really, really good fun.
Yeah.
But that's where you earn your money, being able to switch from 5 hours of nothing into 2 hours of just complete intenseness, yeah. So the hardest bit was probably the boredom, but you found ways of getting around that, because don't forget as well, that was before really smartphones and stuff, so you couldn't just play games, and there was nothing, maybe reading a book.
Just a lot of watching.
Yeah, a lot of watching, yeah.
What's the sort of most memorable experience that you remember from those 10 years?
I think probably, broadly speaking, the skills I learned in 10 years working in the intelligence world at government level, the skills I learned were incredible to pass on to the private industry.
Yeah.
Not all of them were transferable, but the skills I learned through, probably for me the best thing is the sort of teamwork skills, and understanding that actually in that environment a lot of people have different skill sets, and leveraging the different skill sets to get the work done.
Yeah.
There's certain tools for certain jobs, and that I learnt that very quickly. And actually, I was in the government services. I was one of the youngest managers, one of the youngest team leaders, and then one of the youngest higher level managers that they'd ever had. Actually, I was 28 when I managed a large group of individuals, and normally at that level I got to, it was someone that had served 20, 25 years, and I'd done 8 years at that point. Okay. So, that was my best bit, the skills I learned through the services.
Yeah. So, quite intense. A lot of time. So, did you have a family then?
I did, yeah. 2 young kids, spent lots of time away.
How did that work? What was the kind of... People asked me, I only got asked last night, 2 days after, about work-life balance, because I lead quite a hectic life, I do a lot of stuff, and that's my choice to do that, because I don't want to stagnate. I'm always task-orientated, on to the next. And work-life balance, I've got a certain opinion on that. So how was the balance and the effect on the family with that kind of a job, which I would thinking about it from my situation, looking at the intelligence world, I'd think is long hours, a lot of information, mentally tiring, draining.
Yeah.
How's that? Did that have an effect on your family at the time, or?
No, you're right. It was all that, and I think that the difficult bit as well. You go to work thinking you're doing a late shift.
Yeah. Thinking
you'll be back at 9, to put the kids to bed maybe, but actually then you stay out the night. You travel up to Birmingham, stop in a hotel, head down the high street to get pants and socks for the next day because you didn't plan to go away. So that was the hardest bit. Not being able to, I guess, sort private life out.
Yeah.
But once again, without sloping shoulders, I think because of the experience I had in the military and spending months and months away, actually a couple of nights here and there, a week here, a night I didn't come home then at the time I should have done because of work. Personally, I didn't find it that difficult. Yeah. There were issues along the way, but again, it's how you manage it as an individual, with the kids and just manage expectations.
Yeah.
But I always see the positives from it. Yeah. So, I might go away for a week, but then I might get a couple of days off because I've worked so many hours. So I have a long weekend. So I'm thinking, that's all right because I've got a long weekend now.
Yeah.
So it's just dealing with the different environments. But, I know it's difficult for some people that have never experienced going away for long periods of time.
Yeah.
But just always trying to find the positives out of everything in life. And that's the sort of the mantra I've set now for the rest of it. I still fall into the negativity here and there, but I'm a human being.
Human, aren't we? Yeah. So would your partner say the same thing? There's a lot of people that listen to this that are new startup business owners, people wanting to start a business, or people that are very committed to their role and they work a lot of hours and they struggle with that kind of, in quotes, work-life balance. So what kind of if your partner did struggle with aspects of that, the inconsistency, I suppose, of travel and different things, what would be your kind of advice to helping get that balance right?
I think for any relationship, I'm really lucky now because my partner, we both work from home. We can manage things really well. But anyone, I guess, in that situation where they're finding it difficult, I think it's just the communication thing. It really is communication, and it sounds really sort of corporate, but whoever the person is going away all the time is to set expectations and not overpromise, because I guess you get the tendency, maybe the wife has got a high-paced job and she might go into Europe and all these conferences and stuff, and you get that. I guess you get that guilt in any relationship. You get guilt, don't you? You think, oh shit, I've spent a long time away and I haven't done a school run or haven't done anything really, and it's hard on the other person. I think my big advice was don't overpromise things, because there's a tendency if you're away for a week, go, when I get back, I'm going to book that leave and I'm going to take you to Paris for the weekend or whatever it might be. But you get back and another job comes in. And that's where the difficulty comes in, because the over-promising and under-delivering. I think setting expectations, knowing where things are, and constant communication for anyone in that sort of environment, in that situation.
Yeah. I think you sound like you're speaking from experience. A few little pain points in there, a few arguments.
Never overpromise.
I'm going to take that one on, because I think we all do that from time to time. It comes from a good place, doesn't it? Because
you mean it.
You mean it at the time. And what's the comedian that, when he talks about going out and stuff, and I'll be back.
Oh, Mickey Flanagan. I'll
be back at 7:30. No, I might be about 7:45, or it might be 9
with his loaf of bread.
I'm out for the night, love.
I love that one.
So in terms of so your military and the sort of intelligence stuff being quite draining, how did that? I mean, seeing as we're recording this in World Mental Health Week, how did that have an effect on you as a person? So you obviously come across quite resilient, and that's come from things that have happened, and like you said, you learn and use that information. But how does all of that pressure, stress, time served in the military, doing the intelligence work where maybe family and friends don't really understand what you're doing, and you can't really have that out in terms of communication with information and situations, how did that affect you from a mental state?
Yeah, good question. And I think everyone's different, aren't they? Some people, if they're pressured, anxious, tired, pissed off, whatever it might be, they might go and have a couple of pints, and that might be their outlet. That might be letting the steam off. It might be that someone goes for a run and they let steam off that way, or goes to the gym. I was always a couple of pints kind of person. That tend to work. Still does, to be honest. But it's difficult to answer, because there's lots of people in different situations. People got it worse off, people better off, but actually in their mind, this is a difficult thing. From an outsider's point of view, it's always hard to give advice because you're not inside their brain. And from an outsider, things are simple. It's like when a kid's come to you with a question, or your partner or a colleague, they come with a question, you go, well, it's simple, mate. Just do that. Easy to give advice. But really understanding what's going on in someone's head is the most difficult thing. And I know it's cliche and people do always say it, but it's about having a proper, real conversation. But not saying to someone always, because you hear the cliche comment now with mental health, it's good to talk about it. But actually, as an individual, if you notice something's happening, you need to take the onus and you talk to that person you think you're concerned about. You do it. You do the hard work. Because I listened to the boxer chap that was on your previous podcast. I forget his name. Forgive me. But he was saying about, what if you give, you get it back. And this isn't about giving someone to get something back. It's not about that. But you never know when you might need the world to kick in to give you a favour back. And it's just good to be a nice human being. That person will appreciate it, whether it's then or in a year's time. But I think there's too much onus personally on the person that has the issue internally to speak out and seek help. If you notice it, you deal with it, and you ask the questions.
They might not have the confidence to bring it to the table.
Exactly right.
They might have the strength to bring it to the table. But if you table a format, which could just be asking them a question that enables them to open up, then
find some common ground.
You're there.
And you're absolutely right. They might be nervous about speaking about it because it could be that they're just shy. But more often than not, I think now is because actually they think, if I tell someone this problem, they're going to think that's stupid. From that outsider's perspective, because to them this isn't a problem, and they get a bit embarrassed by it, and it eats them up, and it just that snowball effect. So my advice on that and my experience is I've always found it good. ask the horrible questions.
Yeah.
They might say, "Shut up, mate, I'm fine," but ask the question because they're not fine.
So have you ever had an experience when you're in the military and, you know, through your working life or your life where you felt really, really low in that position? And again, it's not comparing to anybody else, like you say, but for you at that time, that was the lowest of the low point.
I have. And again, there's always someone worse off. But I think for me, my lowest point is actually the reason I left government work was, I mentioned previously, I got promoted to a level that normally someone that served 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
I got promoted to that position after 8 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like it. That's life. Human beings do not like that because they want to excel. They want to be the person that's promoted and gets.
Why has he got the opportunity, not me?
Yeah,
I've been here longer
exactly
and all that
right.
stuff,
You've hit the nail on the head. Why is he getting the opportunity and not me?
Yeah.
And I felt very, very isolated. I was posted regionally to a completely new team where people in that team thought they were going to get the promotion.
Okay.
It was horrible.
So you're walking straight into
it was absolutely horrible. Whatever I did, I was never going to win. I had people backstabbing, going to the bigger boss, saying he's done stuff, he said this, and it was awful. I was set up to fail.
Yeah.
But at that point, I realised that the government industry, so to speak, wasn't for me anymore, because I actually, again, learned from every experience. You learn about human beings a lot more. I learned a lot about human beings on that posting. Although I felt crap, isolated, low, like I literally got no help here. No one's helping.
Yeah.
They are making me fail.
Yeah.
I learnt a lot about human beings and that sort of 18 months that I'd done that posting. And
things though as well.
And a lot about trust, actually.
You're trying to do the best for your family, and you're working hard, and you're trying to earn the money, and you want to build a career.
Yeah.
When you've got people maliciously against that through no fault of your own at all, that's hard. I've been in that place before, and mentally it's a tough place to be, because you can't really turn anywhere. And if you are spending a lot of time at work and you're speaking to the same, you know, you end up maybe talking too much to the people that are going to use that information against you further down the line. And it's just, I found it quite difficult to understand who I could trust and who I couldn't trust.
Yeah, which is weird, because I was in a job where trust should have been unquestionable.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for me, which made me feel low, was the disappointment. Yeah. I was disappointed in human beings at that point, thinking, how can you... Like, I'm here to try and do a good job, just like you are.
Yeah.
And actually look at our job. Our job, broadly speaking, is to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Why
make it difficult
for us?
Yeah.
I was disappointed, if I'm honest, mate. And that was the reason I started thinking, if you don't like it, and this is what people are all about in this section, in this organisation, in the government, or whatever organisation it is, I'm always, again, a big believer. If you don't like it, take ownership, sort it out yourself, and move on and do something. Yeah. I could have sat in that job, cushy little number for years, got a lovely pension, but I would have hated every minute of it.
Yeah.
What a waste of life.
Yeah.
What a waste of life. So I dealt with it. I took risks. I got out. I found a different job, and I built my career again in the private industry. Once again, I've never looked back. So actually now I look back at when I felt really shit, isolated, disappointed with human beings, and thought, that was perfect. I'm glad they did it. Thank you very much, because that's now where I'm now.
To go and do
Loved it.
Plus, I think you learn a lot more from negative situations. And,
you do.
And for me, I like to try and read people, and I'm relatively okay at that, and that's a skill of mine, to kind of read and understand people a bit more. I'm quite a people-orientated person. I think you learn a lot more from people that do things in a certain way that you probably don't agree with.
Right.
Because it teaches you how not to be. And certainly when we've been running our businesses for only a few years, we're quite green in terms of people that have been doing it 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
We do a good job, but we've got a lot to learn. And I look back and I think about situations, and I think about how certain people would deal with those situations. And I don't think back to the best leaders in my career and how they would deal with that situation. I think how not to deal with the situation based on X, Y, and Z, and what I've learned not to do, because I've understood how that's made somebody feel, how that's antagonised the situation, how that's blown the situation from 0 to 100 because I've delivered something in a certain way that's just not the right thing to do.
You're right.
And that enables me to learn and think, well, we run our own business, we can actually say and do what we want. We're not beholden to anyone, but actually we are beholden to the people that are working really hard for the organisation, for our customers, for us as board members. Mm-hmm. Everyone's on the same level, but you learn a lot more, I think, from the bad experiences than you do from the good.
100%. Bad experiences, negativity, mistakes. Again, in any industry, that's when you earn your money. How do you deal with that mistake?
Yeah.
Same as sportsmen and women.
Yeah.
If they make a mistake on the pitch, on the field, whatever their sport is, really they earn their money from how they deal with that upset, the recovery. Yeah, boxers, for example.
You don't see it, do you?
No,
you don't see
that's where they earn their money. That's where the grit comes from.
But that's where I think social media needs to come in, and
true,
and that should be opened up. Not that you're a successful sportsman or a successful businessman. You have 4 holidays a year, and you're driving a Bentley and all this stuff. Nobody wants to see that. But that's what is portrayed. What people I think should see is what's led you up to that. Fair play.
Story.
And hence the whole point of doing what we do here is, first and foremost, the podcast for me was an area to vent and an area to say what I want to say, because I didn't feel like I could talk to many people at the time. And like I said to you before we come on, with a £20 mic in a garage, and that was where it started.
Love it. Yeah.
But I think and again, a point of getting you on is someone with a very unique background. I want people to understand your journey and take away from that what they feel they can take away to help them in their personal situations and get that feedback, because I'm not massive, you're obviously doing well for yourself. You've got a lot of opportunities there, and we've spoken about it, over the last few weeks and just before you come on, the lifestyle that you've got now is much better than it was, but you've made that. Yeah. And what I'm interested in, what everyone's interested in is, how's he gone and done that? What are the transitions? What are the choices? You mentioned about risk-taking. That's what people want to know about. And I think that's where people should just open the door. Successful people in the public eye should open the doors more to that stuff.
You're right. And do you know what? When you're speaking to me, Aaron, I'm thinking, in my head, I know what the problem is.
Yeah.
And with the social media stuff. But I think now society, and I think this is born out of social media and the digital revolution we live in, people now, especially the younger generation, this is no disrespect, because I fear for them. I'm actually disappointed how the older generation have manipulated this. But I think the main issue now is people are too worried of what other people think.
Yeah.
So if you take a risk and you fail, people think, oh no, they're all going to go, oh, what a loser. I told you not to do that. You should have just stayed what you're doing. A good example is when we decided to move to Spain. It was just pre-Brexit, so politically we didn't know what the hell was going on. Once we leave the European Union, would we be able to stay? We had no idea, but we knew we just couldn't stand the UK anymore. And the UK, the weather. We just do you know what? There's more to life than staying in one country. Let's move. We made the decision. We sold everything on eBay.
It's a big decision.
On Amazon. Yeah. People carrying around taking the TV away. We got on a plane with 4 suitcases. We hadn't even seen the house we were going to rent yet, because it was in that stage of we saw the outside, but we couldn't go in to see it, blah, blah, blah. Didn't even see it. We just literally moved with 4 suitcases and started again in a different country.
That's huge, though, really. You're saying it in a way that's kind of underplaying how big that move is.
But
I don't think I know anybody in my network and my circle that would up and move them and their family in that way to another country. That's a massive move.
It was massive, but it was exciting. Yeah. And I've always taken risks. I find that exciting.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't find exciting is not taking risks.
Yeah. Does your partner feel the same? Or is she more reserved?
She's brilliant. She's like me. We if we want to do something, we will do it. And this is where the mindset is. If we moved to Spain, didn't like it, or politically we couldn't stay there and we had to come back, we don't care. Yeah. I don't care what another person would think of me having to come back to the UK.
Yeah.
But whatever that decision was, whether that was going for another job or trying a different job out, or if it didn't work, I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
But I think
that's powerful.
But the main issue now is most people do care.
Yeah.
That's why they won't take the risk to try that different job, or they won't risk going to another country, because they're too bothered of what other people think. Yeah. If you can get that out of your head, you will take risks, but you won't think it's a risk.
Yeah.
To me, that's exciting. Choice, yeah. And even if we had to come back, what an experience that was. Oh, do you remember when we went there? We got there with 4 suitcases, checked into a hotel, not knowing what the hell we're doing. Wasn't that funny? I think that's exciting. Yeah. Most people would dread that situation.
Yeah.
But I think it all stems back from that little person in my head that does not care what other people think anymore. And I will have that mindset forever now.
Do you think that's something you can learn?
Can you learn it? I think you can. I think you can teach yourself that mindset. Whether that might be, again, each and every person is different. We're all inherently different people. We've got our own confirmation biases in our head.
Yeah.
We were all brought up in different environments, different religions, different parts of the country, different influences in our life. So we all think differently.
Yeah.
So whatever it is for you that makes it work, it might be that you go, do you know what, I'm going to come off Instagram. I'm not going to look at that for a year. And actually that might help you not care what people think.
Yeah.
Because it's all about image nowadays. It took me a while. And I did care what people thought when I was in the government services. I did care, and it really ate away at me. And that was my low point because I cared what people thought.
Do you think it comes with age?
Yes, it does come with age. You're absolutely right. It does come with age, and I think I'll become more relaxed with it as I get older, and really not care.
I was having this conversation a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago. And I was talking, someone was asking me about, it was only a week ago or so, and they're asking me about kind of what I was like in my 20s. I'm 34, look 44, look older than you.
Looking good, mate, looking good.
I think so. And it was sort of mid-20s that it kind of kicked in for me, and I was tremendously interested in what everybody else thought. It was, I was moving through a business, doing well. Again, same experiences as you. I was sitting in a boardroom, mid-20s, in and around people in their 40s that are much more experienced, thinking, why the hell is this guy in here? But I was there out of hard work, competency. I was good enough. Same as you look at sports players. If you're good enough, you're old enough.
Yep.
It's the way it is.
Yep. You wouldn't be there otherwise.
I was grateful to the CEO for giving me an opportunity to be sitting in there, and I learned a lot. But I was really, really, fundamentally for me, it wasn't about how I was feeling. It was about what other people thought of me.
It's horrible, isn't it, really, when you think of it?
And I would work longer than everyone else because it was important to me that my boss knew I was there before him, after him, and stuff. And I look back and I think that's quite it's a tunnel vision constraint.
Yeah, it controls your mind.
Yeah, and it is an element of control, and maybe that's what business was back then. But I look at it now and I think, did the podcast. I don't care how many downloads it does. I'm really not interested because that's not why we started the podcast. And if one person downloads it and they take something from it, and we get a bit of good feedback, and they're like, I've listened to this and I've learned that, and I'm going to adopt this, which we get all the time. That's exactly what it's there for.
And imagine, right, if you...
But that's freedom for me.
Yeah, but if you'd still thought that way, we wouldn't be sat here now.
Yeah.
If you still thought that way. And again, it's easy to say in hindsight, looking back objectively from the outside, Aaron, if you didn't have that attitude when you were doing really successful, and you didn't have that eating away at you, how much more success... You would have doubled your not professionalism, that's the wrong word, but maybe output in life.
Output, opportunity.
But it's a natural process. It's no fault of yours, no fault of mine. I was in that mindset before. No fault of anyone listening to the podcast. It's a natural process. And I think whether you hit that mindset at 60, 65, 21, 30, mine was early 30s.
Yeah.
When I thought, do you know what? I don't give a shit what people think, because if that's my mindset, I will never do anything.
Yeah.
And they say, if people aren't slagging you off, you're not doing anything right.
Yeah.
And the people having opinions of anything you're doing in a negative way, they're only airing their own anxieties or own downfalls.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot, actually, military, government services, police, where people leave and make something of their lives, do something exciting, that people still in will go, oh, what an idiot. Well, what have they done that for? And I've not written a book, but ex-coppers writing books and stuff like that, you'll see the feedback, and it's someone that's still serving because they're jealous. They don't like it because they will never take a risk and leave. They will sit in that job until their pension and be bored.
But that's their own fault.
Of course it is, yeah.
That's their own fault. That's their own choice.
They're just negative people. And I can't stand being around negative people. And that's why I left. 10 years, loved it, enjoyed it. It got to a point, right, if I stay, I'm just going to be negative, bored, and disappointed. I don't want that for myself or anyone. Move on.
That's great. So talk to me about Hunted. So I've had a lot of people on social media when I've kind of engaged with some people that you were coming on that have talked to me about Hunted. Massive fans of the show.
Nice.
Which is great to hear. The show is really interesting. I mean, I love that kind of James Bond secrets and intelligence, and I'm personally excited about understanding, things that people know about you. Like you travel to work, what information's being shared, who looks at it, because I think when you actually take a look at it, some people will be quite scared of the information that people have on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the show's brilliant, really engaging.
Thank you.
The concept's brilliant, and also you played a big part in that in the UK. With Peter as well. So how did the whole thing come about? Because going from secret, going from intelligence into effectively you're in front of cameras, and it's a completely different stuff.
Huge change. it was one of them situations in life. I know you make your own luck, you get in the right circles, you network, you ingratiate with people, and it was a friend of a friend. His brother-in-law worked at the production company. They were doing this concept, but it had been rubber stamped by the channel. They got the funds. They're going to make this cool TV program.
Yeah.
So they spoke to me about it. Said, "Oh, they want to recruit people from your background, intelligence, military, surveillance. People that can go and hunt people down and gather information, that kind of stuff." And I was like, "That sounds really cool. Yeah, I'll go and speak to them." And literally a couple of days after, I went to the production office. Had an interview. I'll be honest, Aaron, I was crap. I had to do what they call a piece to camera.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was like a couple of minutes. Tell me about yourself. I was rubbish.
Because that's different.
Yeah.
Fair enough, you can do all the actual work, the intelligence
different.
work, but you've now got to be a face in front of a camera.
Yeah.
That's probably
weird.
something you've never done.
It was weird, and I was crap, if I'm honest. In fact, I was that crap because
it
was like a big camera in front of me. Someone asked me a question. I think this is weird.
Yeah. It's a job interview on steroids, isn't it? Really,
yeah,
when you're being filmed,
and it went to Channel 4, and I was like, "No, I don't." So I basically got chinned off on the first one, and it was only because someone dropped out last minute. The production went,
Need you now.
"Could you come back?" So I was a Plan B initially. Ended up being the chief, so I learnt quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it came about. So happy. The next week after, I filled in for someone, and actually ended up being the deputy role on the first ever series of Hunted.
Yeah.
Which the concept really, when it was built, was more of an experiment as to see whether someone could truly hide from a surveillance state that we live in. Everything we do leaves a trace. As soon as you click upload or send an email or put a picture on social media, really that's no longer your property. That's the internet's property.
Yeah.
The internet never forgets, and I could talk about this all day, but. So the first ever show was like an experiment. We'd done it. We thought that's really cool. Probably won't do it again. Whatever. Met really cool people, and it came out and people loved it, and they sort of changed the concept slightly. It was a bit more of a game of them and us. There was prize money put in there, celebrity versions being thrown in. I worked with Peter for years. I was his deputy. He was the chief. Really, really fond memories. I know I've done the chief role for a series, but hand on heart, the best chief Hunted has ever had is Peter Blexley. Yeah. He was awesome. We had a great time. We did have the couple of pint debriefs most days. Yeah. Really fond memories, great time. And then lucky enough, I think it was after series 2, as with all of these programs, different countries look and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
So the Americans did, and I was lucky enough. They said, "Would you fancy doing the American one?" I was like, "Absolutely do. Yes, thank you."
That aired on CBS, didn't it?
CBS, yeah correct. And they never ended up picking it up again. The sort of the head, the one that was flying the flag for Hunted in the States, and the production company left the job. Someone else came in. They want to make their own mark. They got rid of all the old programs. Yeah. Anyway, so they didn't do it again. I continued doing the UK show, became the chief. Very much enjoyed it. And I think because I'd done in the UK, I think 9 series, might be 8 or 9 series if you include the celebrity ones.
Yeah.
Done the chief role, done the deputy role for years. For me, it felt a good time to exit the UK one. In actual fact, didn't even know Australia would want to do one yet. No idea. I just left for personal reasons. Obviously, I was living in Spain at the time. Left all very amicable, no problem at all. And then the Australian one, it was actually, again, how funny life works out. Someone messaged me on LinkedIn who was linked in with another person I used to work with in the government and said, "I've heard the Australians are doing one. Are you on that one?" I said, "No, I'm not. I've not heard anything about it."
Yeah.
Would love to, though. And then a couple of days after, a producer emailed and said, "I'd love to have a chat." And I was like, "Brilliant, so would I." Yeah. And then went over to the Australian one, which I can't talk too much about at the moment because it's still under embargo. It's not airing until July, August, potentially.
Yeah.
But what I can say is, again, being biased, it will be the best series of Hunted ever in the world. It will be incredible. It was an incredible show to make. Really, really cool.
Yeah, how long were you filming it for?
We filmed that for around a month with, rehearsal week, preparation, that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping people will get to air it or see it over in the UK because trust me, if you're a Hunted fan, some of the guys you've been speaking to, you need to watch it. It will be incredible.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be tuning in. I'm sure plenty of people will be as well. And for you, a bit of good weather.
It was
Happy
awesome.
days, eh?
Yeah, brilliant. It
Better
was
than
really,
filming
really
in the UK.
Getting a tan in January is brilliant.
So I've had a couple of people reach out to me this week with some questions
Sure.
about Hunted specifically. So who's the worst celeb
that
you've worked with?
The worst. I've got to pick one out.
You've got to pick one out. You've got a name and shame. We won't tag him in any posts or anything, but yeah.
It's got to be Mr. Johnson, so our current Prime Minister's father.
Right.
He was on the run, Stanley Johnson. Forgive me, I don't know what series of the celebrity version it was, maybe third series of celebrity version in the UK. But he basically just ended up just bimbling his way through. But what was annoying is he was just lucky every time.
Okay, yeah.
The seventh principle of surveillance is luck. He was lucky every day. He would just ping. We knew where he was all the time. Every single day, we just didn't have anyone near to be able to act. Because don't forget, we've only got 6 cars in the UK. No, actually, celebrity version, 4 cars to cover the whole of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
We can't just ring the local police station up and go, can you get down to the train station quickly? We got to drive there.
Yeah.
And so we knew where he was every single time, every day, checking into hotels, getting on a boat. We knew where he was. Just bimbling his way through this process. He didn't even know what he was doing himself, to be honest. But we just couldn't get to him.
Yeah.
We got him in the end, but he was terrible in so much as if this was the real world, he would have got caught after half an hour, I think.
Yeah. More resources.
Exactly, yeah.
A little bit like his son, maybe. Bumbling his way through and doing his best.
Yeah, I live in Spain, so I don't need to get
maybe that's rule 7 of being the PM. You need some luck. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a subject in itself, isn't it?
So we've Hunted. How much of it's real and how much isn't?
Get asked that question a lot, and it's a really good question. The process is fair. It is very fair in so much as we're not given any information unless we investigate it correctly.
Yeah.
So if you're on the run, we need to work out who your close network is. Who's your husband, wife, brother, sister, whatever. Who did you go to university with 6 years ago? And who are their friends? Because don't forget, if they're reaching out to people, they want to keep it difficult. They don't want to reach out to their husband, wife, or whatever. If they use their brother's, uncle's work car, we've got to piece that together to find the car to request information from that particular vehicle. So we're not given anything unless we find it out. So that's real. It's very fair. And don't forget as well, there's prize money. So it has to be fair. Ofcom get involved. There's an audit process. It's very, very fair. And they make a big point of it and they employ very good people to make it fair.
So the gathering of the intelligence works in the same way as it would do normally?
Yeah, exactly right.
You've got to find everything out.
We have to find everything out.
How many people are doing it behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, it varies on different productions, if it's the celebrity version versus the main version. But from a production point of view, I couldn't give you a number, but what I do know, speaking to production staff, and I'm not production, it is one of the most complex, biggest TV shows to make. Don't forget, you've got so many moving parts. You've got headquarters, you've got the fugitives, you've got the guys, the ground hunters on the ground, zapping around the country and doing research and catching them. You've got all of that. You've got hundreds of thousands of hours of footage to cut down into 6 episodes of 45 minutes. The edit process after, so I'm told, is just immense.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of people. It's very expensive to make, but people love it, and that's why it's continued to being made every year.
Yeah. What's your best experience on the show, do you think?
My best experience on Hunted, probably meeting my partner, Danny Brooke. She was a ground hunter. I met her on the show. But I think, again, just...
You have to say that, though, do you?
I've got to say that, but it's true. It's true, and that's where I am now.
Get an easy life.
Exactly. But I think just in general, really, it's just, again, without sounding too corporate and boring, is the networking. It's out of my comfort zone to do that initially, but I knew it would be a fast-paced acceleration into the private world, and I'd only been out the services for about 6 months.
Yeah, so you're still sharp.
But I knew as well, I was so inexperienced with the private world, being in government agencies, military, police. You're very, very insular. You live in this little bubble. You don't, and no offence, but you don't actually know what the real world is. The private industries, you have no idea. You think you do, but you don't.
Yeah.
But actually, when you get out and you think, Jesus Christ, rabbit in headlight situation, what do I do? You know that you need to network and know people in different industries and know someone who knows someone to help you out. That was a fast-paced environment for it. And over the years, I have met some incredible people, very professional people, people that will be my friends for life. On the American show, this is the power of doing something that's out of your comfort zone. Because I've done that first show, I now work for an incredible American cybersecurity company. My boss, Teresa Payton, was the equivalent of me on the American show.
Okay.
We met on there. We kept in contact. I now work for her company.
Yeah.
Best job I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
All because 6-7 years ago, I went out of my comfort zone, took a risk. And you know, lots in between, but that's how it works. So I guess my fondest memories of all of it is just meeting great people across the world.
Good. So Pete, I think a lot of people that I've spoken to about Hunted want to see you come back, and they want to see the old band get back together. Is that something that would ever happen?
Do you know what? If production rung and said, "Oh, we want to do an old school series,"
Are they listening to this?
Well, maybe. If you want to do an old school series where we get you, Blex back, all the old ground hunters, basically the ones that are on the first ever series. Oh my God, I would absolutely jump at the chance. I'd love it.
OGs.
I would love it. I would love it. I mean, yeah, we had some great laughs over the years. You know, but things in life change. They move on. You know, different people go into different positions. That's just life.
Yeah.
But oh my God, yeah! If they said you Blex and the old ground hunter teams and that come back, I would love it. It would be great fun.
So, if you were on the other side of it and you were being hunted, where would you go?
Another great question. I would be very dynamic if I was on the run. I wouldn't rely on technology. I wouldn't reach out to people I knew. If I had to, as part of the process, I would be very strategic about it.
Yeah.
But really, for me, I would not plan it. Because as I've found over the years, not just on the show, but in general, real-life criminals, terrorists and whatnot, if they don't know what they're doing, how does the people trying to chase you know what to do or where you're going to go?
Plan, is it?
So I would not make a plan. I would literally make that in my head. Every morning I wake up and go, right, today I'm going to head north, maybe hitchhike, do this, that, the other. Don't have a plan, because if you have a plan, we would find it out.
Yeah.
Or I know the hunters would find that plan out. Don't pre-plan anything. Literally go and make it up strategically, not literally make it up like Stanley Johnson every day.
Yeah.
But make it up strategically and not really plan anything past 48 hours. That would be my general theme. And I wouldn't say I'll just go to rural areas and I'll just go to urban areas. I would do a mix of both. Both have risk and reward attached to both of them. Rurally, you'd think you'd go, there was no one there, no one to see me. But Mrs. Miggins down the local pub would know that there's a new person in the street or someone walking past. They notice everything rurally. Yeah. They're inherently nosy people.
Yeah, somebody new
for a good reason. They're just nice because they want to help out. Oh, I've seen there's a new butcher's opening up and they know everything about everyone.
Yeah.
Downfall. In the city, you can get lost in the masses, but you've got cameras on every street corner.
Yeah.
So, risk and reward.
So you mentioned about being in cybersecurity now. So what does that entail? So I've got some bits that I want to ask you about this in terms of actually real life. What data is out there? You know, what visibility have people got on me or the normal Joe Blogs on the street? I'm guessing doing what you're doing now with kind of the cybersecurity work that you do, you're going to know a lot about that. So, what are you doing now and how does that kind of affect the normal man and woman walking down the street?
So I work, for the American company Faultless Solutions and been with them for over 3 years. But my main role is not a technical cybersecurity individual, as most people would attach cybersecurity to, someone technically going through and hacking in. There's an element of it, but my main role is intelligence gathering online. So what I used to do physically is now online, but really actually from a keeping people safe perspective. So I guess you could say it's a digital bodyguard.
Yeah. We
look after CEOs, we look after organizations, individuals that are just generally concerned for their security. People that hackers and cyber criminals would absolutely want to target because of wealth or otherwise. So we would go in and find, so let's say you're my client and you come to me and say, Ben, I've got 20 million quid in the bank and I know someone's after, trying to get into my laptops and stuff like that. I would say, all right, Aaron, well, let me go online and see what's available about you. Yeah. Once we know what's available about you, we almost know how they would be targeted. Yeah, you can so knowing, So forewarned is forearmed. That's a sort of initial notion, and then ongoing after that, we keep an eye on all of that digital information out there, some weird forums on the dark web, or card numbers. In America, we'd be looking for their social security and all that kind of stuff, and everything in between. But you touched upon it. I don't think anyone really comprehends how much information is out there on any of us. Even if you don't use social media, trust me, give me an hour, I will find quite a lot of information about you, your family, where you live, the vehicle you drive, where you go drinking on a Friday after work, your friends at work. A lot of information, even if you don't think you have a relatively large digital footprint.
So how's that? So from your intelligence world, how's that then used, stored, access? Who's got what? Because that's something I'm quite interested in. Yes, we know that, especially if you are you're on social media and you're doing a lot of stuff on there, and you've got a footprint both digitally and not. Where's that kept? Who has access to that? Who controls that? What happens in the dark of that intelligence world?
Well, that's the scary bit. No one really knows what happens with it because it's on the internet.
Yeah.
There are deep web databases, there's privileged databases, law enforcement intelligence agencies would have scope of pretty much all of it in a targeted, proportionate manner. They're not just going to collect data on people for the sake of it.
Yeah.
There is bulk collection out there, as we know, it's public knowledge, but whether I agree with it or not, you sort of almost need the haystack to find the needle, if that was the issue. But really, to answer your question, no one really knows where it goes or what happens to it, because the internet is just an anarchic environment which no one owns. So really, you don't know what happens to that information. If you find out a server where information is stored, you can bet your ass it's on 20 other servers. Yeah. And if you get rid of that, it would have already been duplicated somewhere else. So once you upload, send a picture, send an email, text your mate, call your mate, send a letter, whatever, there's a trace on that. By the time you wake up in the morning and get to work, you've made about 20 digital interactions already. I can go online legitimately from an open source perspective in a private industry, pay a small fee, a subscription, and get your phone numbers, your email addresses, your physical addresses, and potentially used passwords and previous passwords as a private individual.
Yeah.
Not even in the government anymore. Not looking at privileged data and phone records. But I can get an enormous amount of information. That's not showing off at all. That's just illustrating just how much is available.
Yeah. That's well, it's not surprising, but I think it'd be surprising for people to hear exactly what's available and how easy and accessible it actually is.
Yeah, and I think as well, pieces of information are just that. They're pieces of information. They're not particularly dangerous. So like your email address, if you posted that on your website, not particularly dangerous. It's your email address. But once we find all of the other digital breadcrumbs and we stick it together, we make that jigsaw puzzle and we look at the picture. Actually, the options open to a cyber criminal are immense.
Yeah.
The amount of information I find on someone's Facebook page, they'll state on there the date they got married, who they got engaged to, who all their family are. Well, I'll just go and find the photographer for the wedding if I'm a cyber criminal. I will then find the email address of both of the husband and wife, email them and go, hey, it's Sandra, I was a photographer at your wedding. I can make an email address which is the same as hers, so I think it's legitimate. I've just found 20 photos that I never sent you. You're going to love them. I'm so sorry. Click this link and you can download all the new photographs I found. There's some awesome ones on there. Make it really personable to them. Say hello to Dave for me, because on Facebook they know that Dave was at the wedding as the best man, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, brilliant, click the link, done. Like, people don't understand. You think it's innocuous.
You think you're too smart for it as well.
Yeah, and you think, oh, no one will target me. Or just because I'm putting a picture of my kids starting their new day at school with their school crest on, no one's bothered by that. Or the fact that I've got my date of my wedding, no one's bothered by that. If you stick all that together, if someone is hell-bent...
If someone wants to do something...
Yeah, if they're hell-bent and getting you, technically, they will get you. So I just think people need to realise, this isn't a lesson, obviously, but I'm never surprised about the information I find out there.
Yeah, I think even some of the bits that you mentioned there, it makes sense, doesn't it? But you just don't think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't want to think about it because they know that the information's there, probably.
Exactly, yeah. And I've never had a meeting with a client when we provided what we found where they're not absolutely shocked and their jaw hits the table and think, how do you help me? Let's get rid of this.
Yeah, I think especially if you've got someone that's got experience doing that,
yeah,
and that's their job,
yeah.
And that's where they make their living doing that stuff that they shouldn't be doing and piecing that together.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, like you said, somebody that hasn't got the experience could potentially piece it together. Somebody that's done this for 20 years, 30 years, that may have been working in similar organisations to you, but are now in the dark side as such. You know, it'd be super easy for them to go and target these people. So yeah, I can understand why the organisation that you work for now is so called for, and probably be more called for as technology improves.
We're seeing it as well, and over the pandemic. That's why I'm so humble and lucky to work for the company I do in the field that I do, because the pandemic hit, lockdown after lockdown. You know, Spain was no different, but cybersecurity and the risk went up exponentially. Yeah. So I was fully employed over that period. Very, very lucky. But again, from decisions I've made previously, have forecasting. Okay, this is the sort of map the route I want to take. But yeah, to touch on your point, it is only getting worse. Yeah. The remote workforces we now have, it brings so many more issues. Yeah. Where normally people will come into an office, they log on to a safe environment with their laptops, but now we're all remote. We're logging in off our own routers at home and sending information over. It's an absolute goldmine for a cyber criminal.
Yeah, you need to have something in place, definitely. So what's the sort of future hold for you then? What's happening over the next sort of year, couple of years? What's exciting in your world? Well,
the cybersecurity world is getting massive, really exciting, lots of exciting work. We love keeping people safe. That's like, there's nothing better when you finish a job, the jaw hits the ground, and then you go, right, well, now this is how we're going to sort it. It's really, really, really rewarding. Yeah. But obviously with the TV projects as well. So Australian version of Hunted will come out, I think maybe summer this year. I think it's going to be a huge hit over there. I think the Aussies are going to love the concept. They've just got that kind of passion for that kind of energy and sort of concept in Australia. So I think we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully there's a recommission on the Australian version. Go over and do that. Hopefully me and Blex go back and do a UK version with all the old. Wouldn't it be nice to do an old version? Who was on Series 1? Right, all come back and do another one. That'd be good, even if it's a sideline. Do it. My partner Danny, she's doing some cool TV projects, one that's going to be coming out on Channel 4 soon. So we've got lots of different cool projects going on. We do loads of keynote speaking. I think let's see what happens the next 12 months. But I think, if the Australian one gets recommissioned, I think they will follow a similar path to the UK one, start to do celebrity versions and stuff like that. So that will keep me 6-7 years down the line doing the Australian version.
What does Danny do? Just out of interest.
Exactly the same company as me. Okay. We both work in cybersecurity, doing exactly the same kind of work. She was an ex-undercover cop many years ago, so we both come from similar backgrounds, and then sort of met up
must help, though,
on filming.
In terms of the understanding, communication
massive,
that you said about before,
massive. And I think with the sort of don't care what people think attitude, we've both got the same, which allows us to get stuff done and do cool stuff and travel the world and just make fun decisions. To us, a fun decision. Someone else, that'll be a risk. That's sort of mindset
down
we've
to perception,
got.
Isn't it? But listen, I think that given the hour or so that we've been talking, we've gone through tons of different things. I think there's some real standout values that have come from the conversation. I'm actually quite surprised some of the things that you've mentioned and how deep and methodical you think about certain situations, and how that kind of comes across is really, really good. So I think from anybody listening, there'll probably, there'll be people out there, I think, that maybe will want to know a little bit more, whether it be about Hunted, whether it be about cybersecurity, future, what it looks like now, whether about, some about your past. You've got a really interesting journey, I think. So it's been really, really good to have you on. If people want to find you and they want to sort of reach out and say hello and have a chat, where would be the kind of best means to go and do that?
Twitter. I do have private social media. So my Instagram's private. I'm still not that confident to open everything up because of the world I live in. But Twitter at Ben Owen 42 at Ben Owen 42, and you'll easily find me on LinkedIn as well. And any questions or anything like that, you can reach out on there.
Perfect. Great. Well, look, that's all for now. Thanks so much for coming on, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Enjoyed every minute. Thank you very much.
Cheers.